Hey guys, today's podcast, today's interview is all about cheese. It's all about the different types of cheese. We, we've got the cheesy music, we've got the cheesy intro, we've got the king of cheese, and it's about how you make cheese. So today's podcast, today's interview is about how you sell your pharmacy. So if you are a successful pharmacy entrepreneur, if you want to be a successful pharmacy entrepreneur, if you're curious how a successful pharmacy entrepreneur does it, this is the conversation you want to listen to. You probably want to care about this conversation if you're a pharmacist, if you're in healthcare, or if you're generally an entrepreneur. Our guest today is someone we've had on several times before this point. He is a business advisor, board member, a straight talker, and a proud dad. It's very important to recognize he believes that a successful business career doesn't always take an MBA or a silver spoon. And instead, he has a no bullshit approach. He started his career as a doctor of pharmacy and moved to buying, growing, and selling an institutional pharmacy, Apothecare. Now he's focused on helping business owners and entrepreneurs achieve the type of success that he was able to create. So he is, as you can tell, extremely humble, just based on that last comment. Just the type of success he was able to create, you can do it too. He will have a arena filled with people where he can tell you about that new product he's launching and the training program that goes along with it. So our guest for today is Rudy Dajie. Hey, Rudy, how are you?
Hey, look at that opening. And we brought all the cheese today. Wisconsin, and I should put my,
Are you a cheesehead?
No, I don't know anything about.
Me neither. That is not the sport I play. I do want to emphasize this is DarshanTalks live stream. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. Both Rudy and I are pharmacists, but this is not a clinical discussion. I advise companies with FDA-regulated products. I also want to say that this is neither legal advice nor clinical advice. These are considerations and don't necessarily reflect the opinions of myself, of Rudy, our employers, our clients, or anyone else. If you like what you hear, please leave a comment, please subscribe, please share. You can hit the like button at the bottom. If you're seeing this on YouTube, you can click the thumbs up. We would appreciate that. It helps with the growth of the channel. Please share. Please ask our guests questions. You can always find me on Twitter or just go to my website at DarshanTalks.com. You can also find me on Twitter at DarshanTalks. I do also want to say you can find Rudy on LinkedIn and you can see his thing scroll across the screen right now. It's linkedin.com/in/Rudy Dajie. So Rudy finally went and got a good URL for it. So good for him.
I'm progressing.
Slowly he's getting
very slowly. Please ask questions because I get really tired of answering Darshan's questions. So if you can come up, give us some other things to talk about, that'd be great.
Well, we already have a question. So Sean asks, how do you value a pharmacy when buying? So let's do it this way. We actually did the buying version, right? So Sean, you can actually, I'll make sure I put a link in there for you about how he started his pharmacy. So I'll put that in for you. In the meantime, as the seller, how do you value the pharmacy you're selling? And then how do you usually see the buyers value the pharmacy? So I'm adding and contextualizing his comment.
So I think it depends on the kind of business that you have. So what kind of pharmacy business you have and how unique your business is and what that is some serious music. So I think that it's really important to understand the position and space that your pharmacy's in. So if you're a retail pharmacy that really has nothing sort of special to offer, then you probably would go on a prescript basis and get an acquisition based on that. If it's CVS offering $12 per script or something of that nature. And it also depends on how entrenched in your market you are. If you're the single only store in that town, what does it get for them? So you can leverage that. So I think there's a lot of different facets of how you decide what you want for your business. And I think if you're in a specialty or long-term care pharmacy, you can do a little research out there to see what the multiple of EBITDA that makes sense for you is. Sometimes you can do a multiple of revenue, but it also depends on the buyer and how sophisticated the buyer is going to be. So if you're selling your business to a private equity firm or a large institutional pharmacy that's out there gobbling up pharmacies because they want to expand their reach, I think you can probably get a better price for your business than if you were trying to sell to somebody that's getting a loan from Live Oak Bank, or that they're trying to finance it themselves, or they're going to hold a seller's note. So I think that there's a lot of different ways to value a business. And then, and we're going to talk about this a little bit today too. It also depends on how professionalized your business is. So if you have an org chart, if you have a real corporate structure, if you are not the end all be all of running that business, and this business is going to survive on its own without you, or you don't play every single role in the business. If you have audited financials, if you have systems in place, if you're doing every delivery with a piece of paper and you don't have technology. So somebody that's going to come in that's sophisticated is going to look at what are their expenses going to be to bring that business to a place where they're comfortable. So I think, and that's sort of ties into what we're going to talk about a little bit today. I think that if you are just trying to get out of the business, it's kind of like selling a house, and you're like, is it really going to get you that much more to paint the walls and do a little bit of work? But if you really are saying, like, I want to be very strategic and exact about selling my business, then you want to make sure that you've got a lot of all your ducks in a row, and can sort of present what the offering is. And then you can look at it a few different ways. You can go get a broker, you can get an investment banking firm, and they're gonna take a percentage of the sale, but they're gonna put an offering memorandum together, and they'll circulate it to a lot of people, and they'll really sort of hopefully drive the price that you're going to get up, and they're going to be a good group to tell you what they think that you can get for your business too.
So I want to repeat what you just said. There are many factors that go into valuing a business, but there are many ways to actually value it as well. So one is a multiple of your revenue or your EBITDA, EBITDA, depending on how you pronounce it. It could also be on a per script basis if you're sort of a mom and pop regular store, and sometimes it's just market value based on what, for example, someone tells you that's what the market sort of will bear, if you will. And then there are factors you just mentioned, for example, how professionalized your system is. Are you the end all be all? If you have audited financial systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you pick which is the right one as the seller? Because as the seller, you're trying to maximize. So do you just go, you know what? I like the highest number I get is with the is sort of treating it like a specialty pharmacy, or do you kind of have to go, that's just not what the market will bear? How do you make that determination as the seller? Because you want the maximum amount.
Well, I think that if you know that professionalizing the company is always going to equal a higher valuation, right? So, and people are going to want to look at your financials. And if you look at a very sophisticated organization, they're going to want audited financials, right? When I sold my business, I had 8 months of diligence, and I had Grant Thornton on the buyer side in my books for 8 months. It was a very long and taxing period of time, and I didn't have great financials. So I'm telling you something that I didn't do well, and I think that if I were to do it again, I would do it differently. So to that point, I think professionalizing the company will always equal a greater value. But the things that I think you need to look at as a seller are: do you want to stay on after the exit? How much equity do you want to retain in the business? What do you just think of the feel of working for these other people? Now you have to think about too, like if you stay on, which most organizations that acquire you in a sort of private or private equity venture capital setting are going to want you to stay on for a period of time, right? They don't want They don't want to have to run the business without you. So I think that there's just a lot of things that you have to think about. So you may end up taking a lower price if the terms are better for you, right? So maybe you're going to take a lower price because you get 90% of your equity out versus 70, but then then you don't get a second bite at the apple. So you have to really look at what makes sense for you and the timing in your life and what you want to do with your career.
So let me ask you this question, and this came up recently during the Twitter buyout that Elon Musk proposed, where he said, what I want to do is I'm going to offer a $1 billion breakup fee. So no matter what, whoever breaks up has to pay $1 billion to break the transaction. Is that only happening in high value transactions, like multi-billion dollar transactions, or is it happening at the sale of a relatively large pharmacy system?
I think that you may not experience a fee, but you'll have an exclusivity period. And there is potentially could be fees as well, because if somebody's in the middle of diligence and they've expended $200,000, $300,000 on diligence, they don't necessarily want you to say, yeah, you know what, I don't really feel like doing this anymore. So there may be provisions there that you have to pay their costs, or there are fees that you'll experience. If you decide that you're going to go a different direction.
But that's interesting. So what you're telling me is that the seller would have to pay those fees. Have you seen it where the buyer has to pay the fees because you spent 8 months trying to prep this pharmacy, go through all the headaches associated with it? Yes, ideally there's a big pot of gold at the end, but that big pot of gold is because your pharmacy was worth that big pot of gold. So you took out 8 months of headaches and you could have nothing at the end of it.
I think if you're smart as a seller, you negotiate that in.
Okay. So the other piece you mentioned was the exit strategy, which is, are you going to stay on and what that looks like? In your case, you were talking about, for example, do you take the money up front and you say, I'll take a lower price, or do you take the money later on? And if you take the money later on, what are the implications? Can you talk a little bit about, let's start at the beginning. When did you know it was time to exit?
I think that's interesting. I think that I had reached a point where I think the business was doing very, very well, and I think I needed some assistance professionalizing the company to get it to the next level. And so I thought that was sort of the right time for me to say, all right, look, we're one of the biggest in the state, let alone New England. The dynamic was right. There was a lot of interest in that space of institutional pharmacy, servicing behavioral health. And I didn't do any of the things that I sort of said that you probably should do. I didn't. I had an investment banker at one point, and I sort of canceled that agreement. I wasn't happy with the way it was going. And I was, oddly enough, I was sort of out there marketing it by myself, and my estate planning attorney ended up connecting with a couple of PE folks and said, hey, listen, if you want to be in the healthcare pharmacy space, this is your guy. And so that's how it went from there. But I probably could have done a significantly better job in approaching it. But I'm happy either way. I'm happy where I am, and I'm not really going backwards on any of those things. I'm just saying that if I did it again, there are some things I would do differently.
Now, it's one of those things we discussed the last time, where you said it's easy. You don't sort of look backwards because those changes may have had other changes. My question to you is, when you were looking at the changes that you sort of made several recommendations, did you ever feel like any of the decisions you made right then, yes, idealistically you could have made those changes, but did you even have the time? Because I remember you saying that it felt like a breakneck speed the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a lot of time for those things, right? I was like just going a mile a minute, and um, but I think that what I'm suggesting, or I didn't think that it was worth the cost, right? I was like, well, I don't need audited financials. Like, what do I care? I don't need to go to the bank. Doesn't require it.
Right.
Nobody else is asking me for it. People lend me money. I don't need money. I've got plenty coming in the door.
Right.
Like, I'm not doing it, and but then when you go to really sell a business, it would help, a lot. So when I talk to folks, I'm like, look, it's, in my opinion, maybe you don't need it day one, but I would migrate towards a true accrual accounting, and and getting audited financials, with going
Why
concern.
why is accrual accounting the better direction as opposed to cash basis?
Um,
Actually, do you want to define both terms before you explain the
yeah.
answer to that?
So cash basis accounting is literally just your cash that comes in that particular month is your revenue, and then your expenses or whatever your expenses going out, and that's your EBITDA is based on that, right? So it's just a revolving period of time. And an accrual based accounting is much more complicated, and is um, more accepted across the financial industry. And accrual is, you have revenue for a period of time that was produced from, say, your software system or your operating system, and then you would have collections against that, and then you have to account for the delta, and then you have to obviously, you spread that revenue sometimes, or if you have expenses, like say you did a bulk purchase in one particular month because the product was going to go up in cost, then you would spread that purchase across the months that you would be utilizing it. So it tries to smooth things and make and create less sort of highs and lows within the financials. Um, Much more accepted, and you can get a better picture of how the business is really running. For example, a company would say, well, why do you have, if you get on an accrual basis, why do you have revenue of 3 million, but you're only collecting 2.5 million each month? I mean, and that would be a question that you should ask too, right? I mean, so but if you're just doing on a cash basis, then it would just be 2.5 million.
Right.
So it really offers insight into the business.
Okay. So in your specific instance, and I want to go back to your story because I think that's one of the questions I'll come back to is what are the things that people asked for that you hadn't considered? But let's start from the beginning. In your case, you one day said that, you know what, I've grown this as much as I can. The next phase of growth comes from finding the right partner and having someone take me to the next phase. How much have you given up and lost by then? And what I mean by that is everyone talks about you came into a whole big sum of money at the end of it, and that's great, and congratulations for all of that. But you paid a personal price, I would imagine, and most people do because you worked so hard to get there. Did you find that the price was worth it? Did you find that the journey was worth the destination?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy where I am.
Okay.
I mean, I'm 43 years old. I sold my business when I was 39. I had a great 40th birthday in Napa, and yeah, I think that, sure, maybe I could have gotten a higher multiple, or maybe I could have made more millions. I don't know, but um, it's kind of like when I started pharmacy school. I thought it was going to take like forever, but it was over in an instant. So it's you're like, oh my God, 6 years. Like, this is like, I'm 18 years old and I'm going to be like so old when I graduate. And it happens and it goes by so fast. Sort of the same thing. I bought the business in 2012 and I sold it in 2018. And, those 6 years were really a blur. And when you're in it, I mean, it's a grind, but now that I'm on the other side, and I'm building my pandemic pool. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
No, and I appreciate that. I guess I didn't clarify my question properly. What you were talking about is financially where it got you, and you were happy with where it got you. But I was really referring to the personal price you paid. And in my case, it was divorce. In your case, you had a kid and anything like that. And I don't need to know the specifics, but
Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So personal price. I think I have a child. I am divorced. I think part of my divorce was, in part because of my commitment to the business and making it a priority. There was, very little personal time. I was always engaged. I'd be on a plane and I'd be working on the order, or, in the DR. I was never on vacation, even if I was on vacation. But I think that you have to maybe be with a person that understands that, like, I loved it too. So I'm not making any excuses.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm doing all of these things for like my family. And I'm like, that's bullshit. I did it for me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you get to drive a really nice car and we go on expensive vacations. And I'm like, that's just really me, like, sort of justifying why I do the things I do, or why I was doing the things I did. I enjoy business. I enjoy the win. So
very interesting. The reason I kind of wanted to ask that question is everyone always sanctifies the winners, the people who come out ahead, the people who are successful entrepreneurs. And I personally do that because I have a lot of respect for successful entrepreneurs. I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs in general who just take the plunge. But I like to point out and that success comes at a cost. And I think people forget that. And I think it was important to, even if the journey is just as much fun, there is a price, and recognize that life is full of choices, and you made choices along the way. And there was a price for those each time. So,
absolutely. I don't think that, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but I don't think that there is this balance, right? I think that things have to the pendulum has to swing in different directions to achieve certain things, right? If you I think that if you want to be successful in business, then you really have to dedicate yourself to that and make it a part of your life. I mean, look, and I'm not saying everybody should do those things, but I think it's necessary if you want to accomplish the goals that you have, like, and for example, Elon Musk, the guy's like, I work 42 hours here and 40 hours here at, SpaceX and Tesla. And the only reason I fly private is because that gets me to work quicker, but he's very much dedicated. And I think he's an extreme example, but it's clear that he has a passion for what he wants to accomplish and thinks he has a sort of quest. And for me, it was a quest. It was a quest that I could do it to prove it to myself. And I also wanted to be the best. And that's what we were, in my opinion, best provider, best partner. So, and I'm being very humble.
Well,
self-proclaimed best.
I just want to be clear that he believes in a successful business career and doesn't think that it takes an MBA or a silver spoon. He has what's referred to as a no bullshit approach.
Yeah, before we got on this call, Darshan, I was like, this is really cheesy, man. And I was like, all right, we'll just go with
it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the price you paid. We talked a little bit about how you got there. Let's now talk about what you did after, which was you grew a baby from what I think was a small. I say small.
Yeah, I think it was a couple years old.
Yeah, right? A couple of years old.
And then I said, like, let's get it to teenage years, and then send it on its way. Right.
When you were sending, you were the father of the bride, and you were ready to give your bride away, the child away. Yeah, go with that. When that came, when that time came, how did you start finding the right partner? What, obviously you said you first spoke to the investment banker, and then your attorney helped you, like, sort of found the right person. So that speaks to the value of networking, and it speaks to finding the right partner. Talk to me a little bit about what that journey looked like for you. Why was the investment banker the wrong group for you at that moment, and why was this group the right one?
Well, the investment banking group was going to go out and find a lot of different people, and that was going to take time. And I'm an impatient person, and they wanted everything sort of the way that they wanted it. And I didn't necessarily get along great with my representative with the investment banking firm. So it's a very strenuous transaction to do, especially with somebody that you really don't see eye to eye with. So I don't recommend endeavoring down that road because it's a lot of work. Especially if you don't have, an in-house CFO and an in-house HR person and this humongous corporate structure. So you're literally like, I need you to pull these reports together, and it's a scramble, it's a scrabble, it's a fight, and you're trying to also keep things discreet too, right? And then people start asking questions like, why do you need all this stuff? You've never asked for these things in 6 years, and now you need to know like every employee and their payroll, and like, why do you need these reports sent to you, or like put in a Dropbox, right? So it's just it becomes very very cloak and daggerish, and understandably you want to keep the noise out there because you don't know what's going to happen. It could not go anywhere because that's very preliminary. Folks want to see a bunch of information, and then they say, okay, yeah, we want to endeavor down this road. So what was the question again?
No, the first question was just how did you choose? Like, why was the IB the wrong group for you, and then how did you find the right group?
Yeah, and then this was happen chance that these folks that we ended up doing a transaction with were reasonably local. I hit it off with the fundless PE sponsor, and we signed an LOI, and then they said, okay, we're going to go get our funding from another PE group. And they put a little bit of money into it, and they had some folks that were in the pharmacy space that were part of their group as well. So there's some just sort of natural alliances or synergies or whatnot. So we decided that we're going to go down that road and do the deal with those folks.
So it's interesting. You spoke earlier about this idea that it's important that the group you meet, the people you meet, have to connect because you may land up working with them. My question for you was, how much of that was, if someone offered you a bunch of money, which they did, how much of your thought process was, I just can't work with you for the next 2 years or 1 year, whatever that period is that I have to work with you afterwards to see this transaction through? Or did you just go, the money's the part that matters? And
well, I think that the money helps push you through some of the difficult things. And keep in mind too, you're both on two different sides until the transaction's complete, right? Until the ink hits that paper.
Yeah.
You're both sort of, it's a weird space, right? You're working together to sell and buy the business. And then essentially after a piece of paper signed and a bunch of money's transferred, you work for them.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be a minority stakeholder in the business. But the dollar signs help sort of navigate some of the trouble spots.
Fair enough. So let's take that next piece. You talked about the cloak and dagger stuff and how your employees were. You want to keep them informed. You want to be. You don't want people working in without lack of information because it makes their life a lot more difficult. But at the same time, it could be nothing. It's vaporware until something really happens. When was it that you had to start getting all those reports, and when was it that you told people, and what was the impact of that?
Yeah. So from the beginning of the diligence period, you got to start pulling information together, and then they're engaging their firms and their lawyers, and then you're engaging your lawyers and your firms and your accountants to try to navigate and sort of put everything together, right? So they're saying, well, we don't agree with this, and they got to say, well, this is why. And so and then so that until we really were getting down to the wire, I did not really disclose what was going on. And then once we were getting pretty close and I was very confident that we were going to close on the transaction, I brought in some of my key people and said, hey, listen, just want to let you know you're screwed. I'm out. No, I'm joking. I brought in some of my key people. Said, hey, listen, here's what we're doing. And this is the reasons why it's great for the business. And this is the reasons why it's great for you. Because there was some upside potential for key employees within the organization as well.
So talk to me about that transition. So we and we're well past time because it's always so much fun talking to you about this stuff. But talk to me a little bit about that transition. How did you decide who were going to have upside potential, who were not? Because you were 100% owner, weren't you? Or did you have?
Yeah, no, I was 100% owner.
Okay.
I think that it was a decision between the buyers and myself. Really, we sat down and said, look, who really in the organization is helping drive this company forward and should benefit in the future from their commitment to the organization. So, and we sat down and carved out some stock option awards for those folks.
So did that come out of your piece or their piece?
No, it came out of the future piece. So really, yeah. So it was warrants for the future. Like, okay, when we sell this business again,
right,
you can get X, Y, and Z.
What happens if they get laid off between now and then?
They lose everything.
So it's not their call whether they make that money or not.
I think that you can negotiate if you were, say, let go for not just cause, you could retain that. But if you leave on your own fruition,
right,
you're not going to retain that. But if you're let go for not just cause, but if you let go for just cause, you're not going to retain that.
Right. Okay. So then there was a point at which you sold and you are now an employee. What was that experience like, going from I make all the decisions to I work for someone, but I'm the only one who actually knows where all the bodies are buried?
It's a difficult transition. It's very, very different. And it may sound even just really like inconsequential, but like
no bullshit, so it's fine.
Yeah, but like everything that you used to do, you don't get to do anymore, right? Like, and like if you put gas in your car on your company, card, and you expense it through the business, like can't do that anymore, right? Like you don't get to just such an asshole. So you don't get to just do things the way you did them before, and it can be challenging sometimes. It can be really challenging because they're looking for professionalization of the company, standard operating procedures, and you're like, well, my Post-it note worked just fine for 6 years, and now you want to upset the apple cart or redefine people's roles or sort of change the philosophy of the organization, or make it that everybody gets to wear jeans every day, and that's something that you didn't really appreciate. So I guess it was nice. I got to wear jeans every day too. But so there's definitely a transition. You have to be prepared for that.
Now, how much of that affected how hard you worked? Because you were already out at that point, weren't you? Or did you?
No, I stayed on as the CEO.
Right. But I mean, you stayed on as the CEO, but your upside was already built in at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, I still had a significant equity in the company. I rolled over, and I wanted the second bite of the apple. But so no, I mean, it didn't change my work ethic. but that sometimes equals some frustration with the people that we brought in, excuse me, and their work ethic, because it was sort of this like, I had a culture of we just got it done and we worked whatever we had to work. And then when you start bringing outside people in that are like, I'm an executive and I don't take calls on Sunday. I'm like, well, you work for me, you're going to take a call on Sunday. and so there were some rubs, and it was difficult.
So you were in a scenario where you were handling these conversations, these communications. You were challenged by the work ethic of some of the people they brought in, not suggesting that they didn't work hard, but they just worked like the business didn't belong to them. They wanted Saturday, Sunday off because that's what they signed up for.
Yeah.
It's a paycheck to them. How has that changed how you operate the next business? Is there any way to make an employee feel like the owner and feel vested based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, give them equity in the company.
And would that have been enough? Giving them, I don't know, 0.5%, which is pretty high, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a difficult thing too to manage. Like, so what happens when they leave, or if they quit, or they're stealing from you, or whatever happens. So I think that is a challenge. I think that I didn't have every employee. I didn't have every employee in the company feeling like it was their own company or working like it was their own business. But I think my key people really appreciated what I was doing and the way I was running the company, and they liked the wins as well. They liked watching the business grow, and they liked receiving pretty good compensation, and they liked being able to perform their jobs and be thoughtful about things. So I don't think I would do things tremendously different, because I don't think I could give every person in the company an incentive to say, like, and I don't think everybody should probably feel like it's their own company, because everybody has different priorities. My dad is very similar to me in his work ethic and drive to be successful, and my mom is the kind of person just wants to go to work, do her job, and come home. She doesn't have any desire to grow or be a manager or any of those things. So I think everybody's different, and I think it'd be very, very challenging to get my mom to be engaged to the level to say, like, that her job is overwhelmingly important, and she's going to do a good job at her job, but she's not going to necessarily go above and beyond.
So I mean, we're well past time, but this was a super fun conversation. So before we go, how can people reach you?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. There we go.
So it's linkedin.com/in/Rudy Dajie. And Rudy, any parting words?
Yeah, if you want to upset the apple cart, change the way you're doing things, reach out to me. Yeah, no bullshit. Let's get it done. Let's get it done.
We've had the real deal now. So thank you so much for coming on. This was the end of a series that we just did on the entrepreneurial journey. So Rudy, thank you for being on. Thank you for asking those questions and answering the questions.
Thanks for having me. And I hope that you guys at least got a few laughs out of it.
Well, it was super fun for me, at least.
Yeah.
But great. Thanks everyone. Stay tuned.
Thank you.